This is Despina Bădescu from TotulDespreMame, and she's Sorana Mureşan from Asociaţia ProMAMA, Breastfeeding Institute. We are extremely happy to welcome Dr. Newman in Romania for a 3-day conference made possible by TotulDespreMame and Asociaţia ProMAMA. Welcome, Dr. Newman.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Newman is a leading authority in infant care and is worldwide famous for dedicating his work to breastfeeding support and advocacy. You founded the first hospital-based breastfeeding clinic in Canada,
Yes.
and you were a consultant for UNICEF for the Baby-Friendly Hospital Initiative.
It's true.
Okay, Mr. Newman, so we all know that breastfeeding is important. Why is it so important?
It's very important for the health of the child and also the health of the mother. And I think that people don't realize how important it is. I mean, we have lots of evidence now that babies who are breastfed have far fewer illnesses. If they do get sick, then they often are less sick than if they hadn't been breastfeeding. And we have even long-term effects for the child of breastfeeding. So, for example, a child who's breastfed is more likely to do well in school, is less likely to get certain types of cancer, is less likely to get diabetes, and less likely to get heart disease when he gets older.
And which are the benefits for the mother, for the breastfeeding mother?
She's also less likely to get certain types of cancer, such as breast cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer. They also are less likely to get diabetes later in life, less likely to be overweight, less likely to have hypertension and cardiac disease as well. I mean, this is extremely important.
But if the scientific community agrees on this, why is the number of breastfed babies still declining?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the attitude of many health professionals, which see no problem in formula feeding, that are often telling mothers to stop breastfeeding because of medications, because of maternal illness, but also because we don't make it easy for mothers to breastfeed. Breastfeeding should be easy. But many mothers have difficulties, and many mothers have serious difficulties with severe sore nipples, for example, or with the baby not gaining weight well, or with the baby refusing to take the breast altogether. And mothers find this extremely disappointing and extremely difficult, and of course they talk to other mothers about it. This should not happen, but it does, and it does for many reasons. Again, because we don't help mothers, we don't know how to help mothers to prevent these problems. We don't help mothers if problems should arise. We don't know how to help them make it easy. So that's another reason. Another reason is the fact that the formula companies are extremely aggressive with promoting their products and give the impression, not only to mothers, but also to health professionals, that formula is just as good as breastfeeding, and it's not.
Once, 7 years ago, when I had that episode of lactating, you helped me with only one sentence. When I asked your advice by email, you said, "Of course, sure you can." And this kind of encouragement counts a lot for a mother who has problems. So you influenced me personally, and that was the moment when I decided to become a professional, and that's why I started ProMAMA Association for helping mothers to breastfeed. So we use your advices to our center since a long time, but we also know that mothers have problems when they are breastfeeding. Who should they address to for these problems?
The first thing they need to do, for example, is to be well educated on how breastfeeding works, how to prevent problems, and how to get treatment for problems if the problem should arise. I think that many mothers make the mistake of going to a doctor or a pediatrician thinking that these people know something about breastfeeding, and the majority actually don't. I can say that I had almost nothing in my medical school training, in my pediatric training about breastfeeding. And anything that I did get was theoretical and didn't really help me when a mother came to me and said, my baby's crying and I don't think the baby's getting enough milk. That doctors don't know what to do anything about. The best support that mothers can get is often mother-to-mother support. The mother-to-mother support can be even better than that one sentence that I sent you. And the mother-to-mother support is very important because mothers often don't know what normal is. They're often given information that it is not normal, for example, for a baby to feed more than every 3 hours, which is just not true. They're given all sorts of mythical ideas about breastfeeding, that the colostrum is not enough, that babies can't breastfeed for more than a year, that it's bad for the baby, it's bad for the mother if the baby breastfeeds for more than a year. So mother-to-mother support can handle most of the problems. But when problems get further than what a mother who is not a health professional can do, there are lactation consultants, and some of them are excellent and can make a big difference.
I'm also a lactation consultant, international certified lactation consultant, but I don't have the medical background. I'm not a doctor. So that's why I want to ask you, what background should a lactation consultant have?
Well, I don't think that a medical background is necessarily a good thing. On the contrary, in many ways, it makes too many people not really understand breastfeeding. Truth of the matter is, doctors, pediatricians learn about infant feeding from the formula companies. And this type of knowledge is not very good for helping mothers. So a medical background is not necessary as far as I'm concerned. Common sense, experience, and attending conferences, for example, going to our website to get information. This is all very useful. And I think that understanding, being empathetic, these are all important things for helping. Having a knowledge of anatomy and physiology, I'm not convinced that it does help.
Well, an IBCLC, an International Certified Lactation Consultant, has studied in order to see the problems, and if the mother has a medical problems or the baby, it would be better if the IBCLC would work in a team to have a specialist, for example, an obstetrician to send the mother to, or a pediatrician if the baby has a health problem.
Well, yes, I think that that is a good idea.
Working in team.
Yes, if the team is all ready to understand that breastfeeding
this
is
is the
good,
problem.
and
Yes, of
the
course.
pediatrician doesn't say, oh, you know, your baby's not gaining enough weight, so just give the baby formula. Well, you know what, just stop breastfeeding.
Because you know, when a doctor tells you something, and an IBCLC, which is not a doctor, tells you something else, the mother doesn't know what to do.
Well, unfortunately, the doctor has a lot of influence, and has a lot of influence because he's a doctor. But that doesn't mean he knows about breastfeeding. I would not dare to say to a mother whose child has, I don't know, a speech problem, that I know better than a speech pathologist. I don't. I don't know anything about what they do. And so, if a child has a problem with speech, then that speech pathologist is the person to go to. If a baby has a problem with breastfeeding, then it's not me as a pediatrician that they should be going to, because most pediatricians don't know anything about breastfeeding. And so if the lactation consultant says one thing and the pediatrician says another, then I would trust the lactation consultant first.
Talking about doctors, we all know that what happens at birth and in the next 24 hours, it is essential for a good start in breastfeeding. But what happens for real in hospitals?
Well, there are lots of things that happen in hospitals, and one of the worst things is that the mother and the baby are separated. And what doesn't happen very often is what babies can do. And it's amazing what babies can do. A baby can be put on the mother's abdomen immediately after birth, and most babies will start to crawl up to the breast and find the breast all by themselves and start to breastfeed. And this can take an hour, but if they take the baby away after 5 minutes and say, well, that's enough, then we've lost a wonderful opportunity to get started. And it's miraculous to see this. And it's, at the same time, it's ordinary, because every mammal in the wild has to find the breast on its own, otherwise it won't survive. And we humans, we're perhaps more intelligent in some ways than the average moose, but we're also in many ways not as adaptive as they are, because the moose will survive. whereas our babies are taken away and will not learn how to breastfeed. And I suppose the argument is, well, there's always formula, but there's formula is not the same as breast milk, and breastfeeding is much more than just milk. And so we lose a lot when babies and mothers are separated, not given the opportunity to get started all by themselves breastfeeding. And the connection, mother and baby, that is skin to skin, is extremely important, not only for full-term babies, but even more so for premature babies. But from what I hear, there's not much of that going on in Romania. And I ask the question, why not? Because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of studies showing that skin-to-skin care and kangaroo mother care, what it's called, is very advantageous for the baby, for the health of the baby, and for getting breastfeeding started the way it should.
It's a problem of mentality.
It's a problem of mentality. We've always done it this way, so we're going to continue doing this way no matter what the studies show.
Can mothers change the system, or only the doctors can change this?
Well, I think that from what I hear from the majority of doctors around the world, it better be the mothers that change the system. And the mothers need to get together and not accept that doctors know everything about breastfeeding. Now, of course, there are exceptions. And we know that in certain parts of the world that babies do go to the breast immediately after birth. They even climb up to the breast and get onto the breast all by themselves. But why this can't be done in Romania, I don't know. It can be done in Sweden. It can even be done in Canada. In Canada, it was the one thing that was easy to change. We have lots of problems in Canada too. But putting the baby skin to skin with the mother immediately after birth, that was no problem. Why is it a problem here? Why isn't it a problem in Sweden? I mean, let's get on the program.
Why is breastfeeding on demand a key factor for a successful breastfeeding?
Babies don't always get the same amount of breast milk at each feeding. It varies. Mothers have more milk in the morning than they have in the evening. Mothers have more milk in one breast than the other. It's not, you can't say that a baby goes to the breast, suckles for 20 minutes, and he got the exact same amount of milk every time. And so a baby may, in the morning when the mothers have more milk, the baby may go to the breast, feed for a while, and then be fine for 3 or 4 hours. But in the evening, that baby may want to feed again after an hour and a half. And so if you try to keep a baby to the schedule, it's not going to work.
You always talk about breastfeeding is more than breast milk. And I think this is the most important that mothers should understand. What can you tell us about this?
It's a relationship that is intimate, it's very close obviously, it's physical, but it's also emotional. And when a baby suckles at the breast, then the baby changes the hormonal milieu, not only of the mother, but of the baby too. So when a baby suckles at the breast, her oxytocin goes up, and everybody's learning about oxytocin these days. There are all sorts of studies that have come out about oxytocin and how it's called the love hormone. Well, okay, that's happening when a baby suckles at the breast. And there's prolactin, another hormone that is released, and this gives the mother a sense of relaxation and feeling good. So you have a baby who's at the breast, and you're producing this oxytocin, which helps you fall in love with your baby, and you have this prolactin, which relaxes you, and you feel relaxed and in love. I mean, geez, that's not bottle feeding by any stretch of the imagination.
Is starting on solids a reason to stop breastfeeding?
No, of course not. That's a good reason to keep breastfeeding, because breast milk is only part of the issue. It's also breastfeeding. But breast milk still has antibodies and other immune factors that protect babies against illness. So food in no way equals breast milk and breastfeeding. Solids, well, sure, they need the solids, but it doesn't mean that solids eliminates the need for breastfeeding and breast milk. Not at all.
Do you have a message for Romanian mothers and for the doctors?
For the mothers, breastfeed, do it beautifully, do it happily, do it in public, do it everywhere. Take your baby everywhere with you and enjoy this time which flies by before you know it. These babies are going to be adults. So don't waste this time when the babies are small and you can enjoy them. For the pediatricians and other doctors, start to learn something about breastfeeding, because In general, and I won't say all doctors, but in general, you've been a big part of the problem.
So your book, Dr. Jack Newman's Guide to Breastfeeding, has been recently translated in Romanian. We are very happy to have this book in Romanian. What was your aim when you wrote this book?
We decided to write this book because we realized that although there are lots of books saying how wonderful breastfeeding is and that sort of thing, and you know, some of them also gave practical advice, but there were a lot of things that these books that were already out there didn't really address. So for example, it didn't really address how to deal with the problem of a baby who is really not getting enough from the breast. You know, there's a lot of talk in books about make sure you feed the baby on demand, and that, but what if that's not working? That's what we deal with. Okay, so what about breastfeeding an adopted child? What about medications in breast milk? So we decided to write this book, and a couple of years ago we decided it needed a complete revision. And one of the publishers said, well, I mean, has breastfeeding changed that much that you have to completely revise the book? And I said, well, no, of course not. But the ways that we interfere with breastfeeding have become more and more varied and more sophisticated, and it's amazing how things come up that never came up before.
Is Dr. Newman's Guide to Breastfeeding dedicated to parents or to specialists?
It's for both, because I don't think that specialists, if you mean specialist physicians, I don't think there's any reason to believe that they know any more than any mother. And so they're starting at the same level, which is basic, and maybe sometimes even lower than basic.
Which is your favorite chapter?
I think I would say the breastfeeding the toddler. Why is it a good thing to breastfeed a child who is walking?
And why?
Oh, because that same relationship that was there when it was a baby, when he was 6 weeks old or 1 week old or even the first day after birth, that relationship is still very important. Breastfeeding helps to promote independence and security in that child, and it's a good thing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.